Hello, what's up, guys? Let me just check if everything's working fine. Hello, what's up, guys? Let me just check if everything's working fine. Looks fine. Alright, so today we are solving at least a few days of Hacker Ranks 30 days of coding. And I did start this previously. Let me just pull the screen over here. Alright, so 1 second. Today we are solving at least a few days of Hacker Ranks 30 days of coding. And I did start this previously. Alright, so let me pause this. Yeah. So I've solved 4 days of this already. So the first 4 days were day 0 was hello world, and then the other 4 were data types, operators, intro to conditional statements, and class versus instance. I would assume you guys already know what these all are and how to code them. If not, we can probably revisit them in the future. But yeah, right now what we are looking at is day 5 loops, which again is, I think we are still in very basic coding concepts. Arrays is basic as well. I think day 9 is when I would say actual coding starts. So yeah, today let's have a target. Most of these problems, at least it's saying that it is easy. I probably won't finish everything today. Let's see how the time permits us. But let's say at least for a basic target, let's have till day 10. Yeah, let's try doing till day 10 today. So once again, I will explain my thought process before solving the question, and I will also, you know, maybe talk about how to solve this question in different languages. But once I explain how I'm solving it and the various process or the various ways I'm taking to solve this problem, I will start solving it, and that's when I will turn on the music, just cause it's chill vibes and we are not giving any interviews right now, and so there won't be much talking while I'm actually solving the problem, though I will keep on explaining the terms as I'm going. And once again, just to clarify, I do not know the answer to these questions, and therefore there will be a lot of searching involved, as well as basically, and again, I'm not all knowing, and I'm here to improve my coding skills as well. So it's all about trial and error and getting the right stuff. What I can also do is show my second screen, and for that, let me just add this thing. Where is it? Alright. Or you know what, let me go to the live stream section, add, we should have a display capture already. Never mind, we can still do this. Yeah, so monitor 2, I think. Yeah, so I have a 2 monitor setup currently. So what I can do is have one monitor, the main monitor, going, let's say, infinitely, where will be the best place to put this? I don't want it obstructing on the screen, and I also don't want it to. Let me just look at my live stream real quick. As you can see, this is my second screen, and this is what's going on currently. Let's see. Alright. Is it too intrusive? It's not half bad, but I would like to make it smaller. Let's see now. Also, is this the best quality we have right now? I would like the quality to be a little bit better. Alright. Is this fine? You know, I'll make it even smaller. I want you guys to focus more on what I'm doing on the screen, and therefore I think this will be a better way. Again, let me check my volume. Does it working? Is this fine? No, I'll make it even smaller. I want you guys to focus more on. Let me increase it a little bit. What I'm doing. This is much better. I hope so. Therefore, I think this will be a better way. Again, let me check my volume. Does it work? I want you guys to focus on this is much better. Yeah. So we have the right volume as well, and everything seems to be fine. Let me just. I'll not close my live stream. I'll leave it in the side, but I will open a new window though. Alright, so the first question we have, or the first question of today, is given an integer n, print its first 10 multiples, each multiple n and I. Is there any way for me to, yeah, each multiple of n and y, n multiplied by I, where I is 1 to 10, should be printed on a new line in the form of n into I equals to result. Example n3, the print should be looking like this. Alright, so this is a very easy problem. I was a little bit intimidated by the imports they had in the right, but I don't think we'll be needing almost any of them, and they have already given us the strip method as well. So what we need to do is this is basically a times table, right? So 1 to 10 table of any integer from 1 to 10. So let's say, for example, the n which is specified over here can be anything from 1 to 10. So let's say if n is 5, so what we need to print is 5 into 1 is equal to 5, 5 into 2 is equal to 10, 5 into 3 is equal to 15, and so on and so forth. And that continues for everything. You can see the second input is 2 and the same thing. So what will the code for this look like? So I'm coding in Python because I think that's the language easiest to work with, at least in the mainstream languages. And also, and you can code in Java and C++ as well, but I just find Python to be the most efficient, not in the terms of you know, I can not in the terms of if I know it correctly or not, but more in the terms of how much easily I can use it and how quick it is. Like even though I have equal proficiency in Java and Python, I think Python is still much more quicker, though it is much slower in actual processing. But nevertheless, let's look at the question over here. So the input is n is equal to 3. Right? Let me just see. So the input format is single integer n. Now what I don't understand is why have they used the strip method in this, but So basically, let me explain you guys the strip method. In fact, you know what? I might just use ChatGPT to better explain you guys. uh, so basically, before going to ChatGPT and verifying if my statement is true and saying what I missed, strip method basically separates the string or integer. So as far as I remember, it's, let's say if we have 210, right? That's an integer. Strip method changes to 210. So once again, let's just verify it with ChatGPT. So yeah, so what it does is, as you can see over here, strip method remove leading and trailing white space characters. All right. It's the split method that splits this thing. I think this can also split the characters. As far as I know, you have to put a condition inside it. So as you can see in the example on the left, let me just copy paste this example, the first one. So what this does is, as you can see in the text hello world, there are 3 white spaces behind hello and 3 more white spaces after the exclamation mark of world. And once we do use the Python strip method, what that does is it removes the white spaces. Now why does it remove the white spaces particularly? That is because you have not specified anything inside the strip method. Now this leads me personally into a follow-up question as to why didn't it remove the white space in the middle. And let's check it over here. So because if it is a simple method that only removes all the white spaces from the text, it should remove the one in the middle. So if you guys get what I'm trying to say, so the output for this input is this. So it looks fine. These 6 white spaces are removed, but if you look closely, you can see there's another white space in the middle, and that still exists. So the strip method does not remove all the white spaces. At least according to ChatGPT, it only removes the leading and trailing white spaces. In simpler words, the white spaces at the start and the white spaces at the end. It doesn't remove anything in the middle. So I can see how this can be really helpful when let's say there is some kind of text entry, or let's say passwords, where you don't want to use white spaces necessarily at the end or the beginning, because many times when you copy paste some stuff, there is a high probability that there is white space at the start or the end. So we do not want that to happen. So this can be really useful in those instances. Other than that, again, when we are getting any input, I can see how this is helpful, because many times when you're trying to input something and it's really hard to recognize a white space, and if there is a white space, the Python just won't take the input, because white space again is not an integer. It will classify that as a string. So I guess it makes complete sense. So once again, as I told you, we'll keep learning new stuff and going through the process of coding, right? So we are clear with strip method. Again, my question was, why doesn't it remove the one in the middle? So what Python says is the replace method is the one that does that, and strip method just removes the one at the start and the end. So this makes perfect sense. Again, this is not a requirement, because I'm 95% sure that most of the test cases over here will just have an integer and no white spaces. But I think it's a really good what do we say, it's a really good foolproof plan or avoidance of errors, that if anyone does put a white space or a space in general, it will eliminate it if it's not in the middle. So yeah, and generally when white spaces are in the middle, they're more obvious. So if it is space 1 2 space or 1 2 space, that is much harder to realize that there is a space at the end than 1 space 2, because you can see the gap in the middle. All right, moving on. The next thing we have over here is how are we gonna approach this problem, right? So once we get the input, what we need to do is multiply it by the integers 1 to 10 and print out the output. The most easy way I can see to do this is by simply, let me just show you real quick. So n is the input integer we have here. All right, and what we want over here is for this thing. So what I was thinking is one way to do it, and I already got another way to do this, but I'll still show you guys this way. Print n into one is equal to, right? Equal to, and then we have a space, so we have a comma over here, or do we have a plus over here? Yeah, we have a plus over here, and then we have a plus over here, and it goes to, what's the formula? N into 1, right? Yeah, there we go. So I think this is the most basic method. I wouldn't call it brute force per se. So what I did over here was, so in Python, the print statement basically gives the output. So what I did over here was n, which is our input integer. Let's take the 3 example. So 3. So then we leave a space, because as you can see, there's a space over here, and then x. This is basically, it basically means multiplication, but the multiplication sign is actually this in for computers. So they don't understand x as in multiplication, but for the printout and for human reading, I think this is a good way to go about it. And as you can see, I have put this text under double quotes. So what that does is, everything outside the double quotes is, let's say, something to do with the program. It is programmable stuff. Let's put it that way. And everything inside the double quotes, Python doesn't care about it. So how exactly does it not care about it? So over here, Python doesn't care what I write over here. I can write anything except a very few special characters, which we will, talk about maybe later if need be. But in general, Python doesn't care what's there inside this. So Python doesn't care I have x instead of the multiplication sign that computer recognizes, or 1 or equals to, that it doesn't matter. So what matters to it is everything outside that. So plus is basically concatenation in our case, and concatenation in simple words is merging them. So for me to merge these, there are 2 ways. One way I did initially was comma, and then the other way was plus. I think it will be really interesting to see what the main difference between 2 ways is. As far as I know, there is a difference in spacing. So I think if you place comma instead of plus, it automatically leaves 1 white space, and I don't have to assign a space over here. But once again, it's all about what you're more familiar with, and what comes to your mind the quickest. And plus is something I think I'm more familiar in, something that I use regularly or frequently, so I will go with it. And this is the first line. So now what we can do, once again, I think this is maybe the worst way of doing this, but you just print it out 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 times, and then just replace the integers accordingly. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and here as well 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So as you can see, what I basically did was the first statement was this, and then I just went on from there to all the other statements. This should give the result. Let's try running it. And again, I'm saying this might be the worst way to do it. And why am I saying that? Because as you can see, it's a continuous flow of integers. In fact, if there is any pattern that we can see in integers, there is a big chance that you can put it inside a loop. And I think that's what they were expecting, because we had a loops, because this is a loop, what we say, day 5 loop challenge anyways. So this is the worst way to do it. But what I always think is always do it the way that is the easiest or the most brain dead way first, and then once you're done with that, because when you're in a coding interview, it's not about it is about the best solution as well, but it is also about you should be able to solve it first, right? So if you waste a lot of time thinking the most optimum solution, you might not have the time to finish the problem. So at least as a rule of thumb, what I like to do is first get the simplest solution out there. I generally don't like brute forcing my way through it, because I just don't realize brute force method anyways. But yeah, get the simplest solution out there, and once you have an answer, or at least some sort of input and points, then you can try to optimize the problem, which we will do in our case. So we have this. Let's try running the code and see what does it say. Unsupported operand for intent string. All right, so we had to use the comma. What it basically said us is that everything inside double quotes, Python considers it as string. And as you can see, n over here is an integer. You see the int back, the int input over here. If this was just input, then it would be a string. But then again, we won't be able to do, perform functions like this. So the main difference between integer and string is that Python doesn't care what's inside a string, as I told you guys before. It just assigns it to a random value of memory. It's like a big chunk. So let's think of a string 3 and an int 3. So how will I write that in Python? So a string 3 looks like this. I told you, double quotes. And an int 3 looks like this. So how are these two different? You might say it's the same number in the end. It's the same number to you, like us, but it is not the same number to Python. For Python, it doesn't care what's inside this. For Python, this is any XYZ character. It just gives it a memory slot, and it's like a chunk of data for it. It doesn't read what's inside it. Or it does read, but it doesn't care what's inside it. But for an integer, Python specifically, I think there is a what we say range of numbers through which Python considers it as integers, and then we move on to floats and doubles, though I'm pretty sure Python doesn't have doubles. But anyways, so so Python considers this as a number and can use it to perform applications like multiplication, division. It can use it to perform operations, my bad. So this is the main difference between a string and a and an integer. Now I would like to just go a little bit on depth in this. It is not that you cannot use multiplication, addition, and division with strings, but it's going to be in a totally different level, or it's going to be totally different than what's in integer. For example, if I do a string multiplied by 3, the answer is going to be something like 333. But at the same time, if I do an integer multiplied by 3, the answer is gonna be 9. So you guys see the difference? It is doing the function, but in the string as well, but it is not exactly multiplying it. It's not treating it as a number, it's treating it as a chunk of data. That's what I told. What it sees with this multiplication of 3 is that it just needs to print out that data or output that data 3 times consecutively. This 3 can be anything. It can be ABC, and Python will print out ABC, ABC, ABC 3 times. So I hope this clears things by a lot, and the main difference between string and integer, and the issue we faced over here while running the code. What it says was unsupported operand type for plus int and string. What it's trying to say me is that you cannot add an int and a string. That's like adding a chunk of data to 3. What the computer doesn't realize what the chunk of data is. For that, for computer, it doesn't make any sense. What you can do is, so let's say if I have a string 3 and I add another string 3 to it, the computer will give me 3 in a string. Obviously it won't give me the integer, because it understands that these both are chunks of data that I just need to join. But when you have a number and you try to add and you try to add a string to it, Python doesn't understand what it means. Like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to use the property of the integer as, you know, a number to add the string to it, or do you want me to use the property of the string and just attach them both? So once again, in simple words, Python doesn't take different types of data in addition, for the most part. Now you can convert string to int, and there's a long process for it, but we won't go into that today. So instead of that, let's just put the comma, right? That's the thing we were trying to do before, and it should work. I just hope we should not have 2 white spaces. So yeah, I think this was also another great way to know the difference between a comma and this thing. Meanwhile, let me just look at my thing. Oh, the chat is disabled for this live stream. How do I enable chat? How do I enable chat? Let me just go to settings real quick and see if there's any way to enable chat. I can't look at anything right now, guys, but I will make sure that by the next live stream chat is enabled as well, and we can probably do something, or I can answer your questions if I know the answer to. Meanwhile, let's just do this, and I think I'll have to do that for this as well, just cause. Let me try running. I don't think it's gonna run, but yeah, it doesn't want to concatenate this as well. So again, a comma. So once again, whenever you're trying to merge the string and int, always use a comma. And let's run the code now. What's the answer? So as you can see, it has taken 2 white spaces, exactly as I exclaimed before. So I'll remove the white spaces for each as well. And I'm pretty sure there's a way you can, you know, do it with plus and concatenate them with plus, but what was it? It's not coming to my mind right now. Let's try this. There we go. So that passes our test case, and I can submit the code, and you can see it will pass each and every test case, and it will give me a correct solution. But if you, can we see our runtime over here? I don't think we can see our runtime over here, but yeah, what I basically wanted to say was the runtime of this is going to be really bad, or maybe not that bad because it's only print statements, but this code is still very inefficient. We have taken like how many 12 plus 23 minus 12, around 11 to 12 lines of code just for a multiplication table. I think that is highly inefficient, if anything. Now I'll probably show you guys the easier way, or the way they intended to, because again the module is named loops, so they were assuming that, or they were hoping for us to use loops. So what loops, how can we use loops, right? The loop approach. So loops are majorly categorized into two kinds, or two main kinds. At least that's what I'm aware of, which is continuous loops and non-continuous loops. Once again, what I'm saying is not in any textbook. This is just my understanding of the language. But as far as I know, what does a continuous loop mean? A continuous loop is something that will not end until it fulfills a condition. And what does a non-continuous loop mean? A non-continuous loop is simply that ends after a single call. So a good example of continuous loop is the for loop or the while loop. And a good example of non-continuous loop is the if-else loop or the case switch loop. For this question, we can obviously use if-else, but that's again gonna be highly inefficient, because if-else is gonna break after every single occurrence, and we are not exactly checking over here that we are not checking any condition over here that if it is true. The only condition that we are checking is that I needs to be from 1 to 10. That's the only condition we have, right? The integer can be anything. So that's the only condition we need to keep in mind. And once again, for will if loop, so you'll have if I is less than 10, then how will we do it if I'm trying to think about it? Honestly, I won't even give it a thought, because after a while with experience with coding, you realize that that's just not the loop for it. So the loop for this, at least the one I'm going to use, is for. You can very well use while as well, but again, it's all about your preference, and I think I'm more comfortable with the for loop. So how does the for loop work? We at least in Python, we initialize a variable I, and then, which is again already a variable given, and then we give it a range, which in our case is 1 to 10, or is it 1 to 11? Once again, it's my first problem of the day, guys, and I'm still refreshing my memory. That's why we need to code continuously. So what happens with ranges is that it either does not take the first one or the last one, which of which I'm not 100% sure which one it does not take. That's why let me think that so it's gonna take one. This actually means 1 to 10. So because it does not consider the last integer, the one before the last. At least that's what I'm thinking. So if I is in range this, right? Print where was that? Do we have it? Yes, yeah, we still have it. So once again, in Python, indentation is really important, so make sure that whatever you're writing is correctly indented. So yeah, so I think we need to remove this anyways. So we have n again, we put a comma, and then we have the into sign, and then we put a comma, and then we have I, and then we put a comma, and then we probably have an equal to, and then we put a comma, and then we have this. And then we put a comma, and then we put a comma, and then we have this. And then we probably have an equal to, and then we put a comma, 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 and then we have this. So again, what this does is, let's take an example. So I initially is 1 because that's what I have assigned it to be. So n over here is the input, so let's say 3 into I, which is 1 right now, is equal to, and then n into I, which basically means 3 into 1. So this is the code which I've written. So now the next question is, if I just run code and submit it right now, what's gonna happen is it's gonna run, I is gonna be 1 forever. So it's gonna run this, and then it's gonna look at for condition again. It's gonna see, oh, I is 1, let's use 1 again, and then it's gonna be an infinite loop of 3 into 1 or 4 into 1 or n into 1. But we don't want that. We want it to stop at 10, right? And we want it to go till 10 and then stop at 10. So a simple fix, just inside the loop, add 1 to I. So what that does is it, I don't think this white space is necessary. You know what, let me try it without the white space first. So what this does is, so after it does n into 1 or 3 into 1, it adds 1 to I, so 1 becomes 2, and then it again runs the loop. So it's 3 into 2 now, it prints it and then runs the loop. And now let's run the code. Hopefully it works. If not, we'll add a space over here, and there we go. Now why was it showing yellow? Because it's not good practice to leave the space, or it's not good practice to not leave a space for easy readability. But if it works, it works. No, I'm just kidding. It's always good practice to have good code. And it says to leave 2 spaces before a comment, which I again appreciate, and a space after. So I think my guess was right. So what, as you can see over here, it only goes to 2 into 10. So I never takes the value of 11. So yeah, so what that basically did was, it went through 1, and then it did +1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and did the loop till it reached 10. And as soon as we did I plus 1 to 10, so I became 11, it saw that I is not in the middle of this. Once again, we are not considering 11. 1 is included, but 11 is not included. I sometimes, as I just got confused 10 seconds ago, I still get confused in this topic. And the good thing about computer science, if you're not giving a test, is that you can always try to run the code and see if it works or not, right? But nevertheless, so always remember that the first in a range, the first integer is considered and the last one is not for Python. So there we go. I think this is much more efficient. We finished it in what, 4 lines, 3 lines. Much more efficient, much quicker to do, and we use loops. All right, so once this is done, let's go to the next day. What do we have? All right, the next one is reviewing. All right, I think this will be a good way to brief you guys on what I did previously as well. Let's look at the objective. I think it's really important. I think 60% of the problem is solved while you're reading the objective. And meanwhile you guys are reading the objective, I'll fill a bottle of water and be back. let's get back to the question. Task: given a string s, alright, we have a string s of length n, alright, we have a length as well, that is indexed from 0 to n minus 1. Okay, so this is once again what I was talking about before. So it's always indexed a list or string or array, any data type in Python, and generally every coding language or programming language starts at 0 and ends at the length minus 1. Because it's starting from 0, it doesn't end at, you know, the exact length ending. So if the length is 10, it will be 0 to 9. I know it sounds weird, and it is honestly a bit weird, but that's how the Python gods made it. Print its even indexed and odd indexed characters as two space separated strings on a single line. Alright, I got a brief idea from the question, but I did not completely understand it, and that's why the example cases exist. And 0 is considered an even. Yeah. Alright, so here we have a string a, d, b, e, c, f, and it's a, b, c, d, e, f. Alright, I get it. So what they want us to do is print the even strings on one side, or the even characters on one side, and the odd characters on the other side. What's the sample input? What does the integer do? For input format, the first line contains an integer, the number of test cases. Each line I of the t subsequent lines contains a string s. Alright. Okay, they have added a little bit of twist to it to try to make it a bit hard, but it's still pretty doable. Yeah. Okay, so let me explain you guys what they're asking from here. We already understood that they want us to separate even and odd, but then the question which came to my mind is, why is there an integer at the start of an input? So what it basically does is says how many inputs there are gonna be. In simple words, it's the end range of a for loop, right? And the first thing that came to my mind looking at this question, and I recently studied a bit about this, is the car method. So what you can do is split a string into character array in Python. So what that does is, it basically, let's say the string is a, d, b, e, c, f, it divides each and every, or it separates each and every character, which is a single alphabet, and puts it as a separate value in a character array. So I personally think that's the easiest and the best way to approach this problem. And then once we have an array, we can just, for even and odd, there's a rule of thumb to always look at the modulus or the remainder. If it is 0, it's even, and if it's 1, it's odd. So yeah, we are going to use the remainder rule and then an if-else statement and separate it accordingly and put it in separate strings. That seems like a really plausible solution to me. Once again, I don't think that's the most optimum solution, but that's the first thing that's coming to my mind. So we need to read input, and yeah. All right. Let me just look at this real quick. So do I need to make a function? Making a function is always good. Do we need to make a function? No, right? Because all the input that is provided is direct. There is no functional input per se. So we can just write a direct main function. Are they giving us the explanation? Yeah, we don't need an explanation. All right. So this is what we are gonna do. We are gonna first get the number of cases, and mm, let's just have no case. So int input. All right. So this is the integer we got input of. So for I in range, do we start with 0? Do we start with 1? And then no case plus 1. All right. What? Oh, no white space. All right. So what does it want then is so string input. So that was the number input, and then we have string input. So what I did over here was first took this input, right? And then I did a for loop. Then I took this input. All right. And now I have to divide it into character array. I will also like to define this. Meanwhile, let me search for Python divide string into characters. No. There is a character method, I'm pretty sure. So once again, I know there is morality in there's a question of morality in using AI services like ChatGPT to solve your questions, and I completely agree with the many out there who think it's immoral to use ChatGPT to solve your questions. But once again, I think it depends on what you're using for. So let's say if I copy this question and then paste it, and then copy the answer and paste it back to my console, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, because that's not me who coded it. That was ChatGPT who coded it. But I think if I know the process to do it, and I know how exactly I need to proceed, and I'm proceeding accordingly, and I'm just taking reference from ChatGPT. So learning from ChatGPT, there is no copy pasting going on here. Everything is typed and everything is from my logic. The only thing ChatGPT is helping me, if anything, is with the syntax, and if there is a function that exists. And this is again not an interview. Obviously, I will not use ChatGPT in interview, because anyways most interviews are proctored, and again there's an issue of is it ethical or not. But as far as I think practice goes, and you're not using ChatGPT to copy paste your way into the answers, and you're learning from it, I think it's a totally helpful resource, and it can work wonders as well. So if I was, let's say, so it gave me this solution to split into character array, but I know the solution what it gave is not wrong, but I also don't want to use this solution, because one more thing about ChatGPT that people should generally not rely it on multiple occasions is that it generally has much complex code, probably better optimized, but still very complex for at least a junior level coder. And it will be much harder for you to understand and implement that code, and oftentimes take much longer to implement that code in your system as well. So I don't think ChatGPT is anytime close to taking our jobs. Yeah. So like this one, I know what all the answers that ChatGPT gave are right, but I still think there is a split or splice method to get the character array. Let me just do split or splice method to get characters from a string. It's refusing to give me the answer. Let me ask it, can you use? It just doesn't want to give me the answer. Alright, looks like I'll have to go to Google. Alright. There's that unpack method which Geeks for Geeks gives me. But this looks like a great method, honestly. Not a bad method at all. So according to this method, if I have a car array, alright, and the car array is basically equal to this str input. Does this work? We can try. So once again, as ChatGPT never even came close to this method. It did give me the loop method, but it never gave me any other methods. It was consistent or insistent on using the loop method, and that's why ChatGPT is not that great. But nevertheless, we have the car array. We got the input. So string input, we divided it into characters, and now it should be easy, right? We add another while loop. So for j in char array, and I will explain the loop, this code and solution once I'm done with coding. So for j in char array, what we need is f or should I take the range? I will have to take the range, right? Yeah, I'll have to take the range. All right. Not here. Yeah. All right. If this right here, I'm just checking for the remainder equals to. Yeah. What issue do you have right now? Missing white space after keyword. Missing white space. All right. Which keyword? After this? All right. So if it is this, we have str1, right? str1, str2. Honestly, I should do this. Yeah. Right. And so str1, where we have the, or should we just have it str even? Yeah, I think that makes more sense. Because oh my god, yeah. And then odd, yeah. Even is equal to um, um, how do we append in str? Yeah, str even plus char array j, right? Yeah. And do we need else? Str odd. So we copy this, indent it correctly, odd, right? Yeah. So, and then what? Print str even plus str odd, right? And then we, one second, reinitialize these. Again guys, I'm pretty sure this is not the best method to do it, but this is the one that comes to my mind in an instant. So yeah, we're gonna follow this. And I equals I plus 1, right? Yeah. I will also probably, once again, I'm not sure if I need to initialize all of these as this thing, but it's always good to be safe than sorry. And maybe char as well, because I would not want to do this. All right, let's try running the code. All right, we got the sample test case passed. Let's try running all the test cases. All the test case passed. Oof. Yeah, thank you. This was, I wouldn't say hard per se, but it was obviously harder than the previous one. It required more thinking. You know what, actually, before I explain you guys what just happened, wait, how to have Python. I know in Java it's something like this. Does this work in Python? No. How do I write a block of comment on Python? Is it this one? The star one? Oh, it's 3. Right? Yeah. All right. So let's try running the code now, and if it works. It does not. Right. So I was right. So how much can we take for granted is my question. Oh. Did I also? No. Not this as well. So we need to reinitialize everything. Or did I go wrong somewhere? All right. What we can do instead is initialize everything in here so that I don't need to reinitialize it outside, right? All right, that works. So the main issue that I was having before is that, so you know how I initialize these variables outside. So once my for loop is completed, these variables still contain the value which was there in initial input. So for example, hacker, so the variables str even got the HCE, and str odd got AKR, and then when it run the for loop again, it still had the HCE in it, and it got rn again. So for rank it was HCERN. So you see how that doesn't make sense. It should just be rn. So that's why after the loop I put them back to 0 or none value. But I realized that if I just define them inside this, so once this loop completes, the loop starts again, and then it again gets initialized to 0 by themselves. All right, so let me explain you guys the code. First things first, we get the number of cases. So in this case it's 2. I'm pretty sure there might be some other test case where it's more. I can't look at these because they're hidden, but it can be 3, it can be 4, it can be n number of test cases, or it can be less than 10, but yeah, we don't care. So we got the test case. So what did I do after that? I used a for loop. As I showed you guys in the previous problem, what does for loop basically do? For loop loops the thing inside it continuously until this condition over here is satisfied. It covers the whole range. So I initialized a variable I. Now another thing to keep in mind is, if this was Java or C++, you will have to make sure that you do I is equal to 0 or initialize the variable I before using it in a loop. Because it is Python, we call, at least I think it is a dynamic initialization. What that means is I don't need to exactly initialize the variable. So for this car array, I actually don't need this at all. Like, this is unnecessary. So if I run the code, it's still gonna function perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. I don't need it because I am defining character array. If this was Java or C++, it's not taking that input. There's no way it's taking that input. In fact, if I don't initialize any of them, there comes an issue when I don't do string even and odd, because I'm calling them. So first things first, we'll talk about the process first. But remember this, in Python, you do not need to initialize every time, but I still think it's a good practice to initialize it, and that's why I do it. And again, I did not do it for this case because let's just say it's taken for granted that you don't need to initialize the variables for loops, but in Java and C++, yeah, you do. So what I did was, for I, so when you initialize a variable in Python dynamically and don't give it any value, it automatically takes the value as 0, which is the base value basically. So for I in range 1 to no case plus 1. So because I defined the range, the I cannot stay 0 anymore, it should be 1. So now the I becomes 1. I basically becomes the first integer of a range if you're providing a range. So if you guys have noticed me during the process, you guys might have noticed that initially I was not even giving the range. For the previous one, I just gave it the array name. And what that does is, so there's two ways for loops to work in Python, right? The first way is the for loop goes through the numbers or the integers. So if I use, let's take char array as an array. And before that, let me explain you guys a little bit what an array is. An array is nothing but a list. So an array looks something like, why did my command Alright, this is how an array generally looks like. So what this is one item, this is another item, these all are items inside a list, right? It's like if you guys have played Lego, these are Lego blocks basically. They don't have any specific meaning in the sense that they don't need to be on top of each other, but just think of these as individual components. They're like, almonds in a bag, or anything like group, um, um, I don't know, Ferrero Rochers in a box. Yeah, so they're basically a group of similar things inside a big thing, right? And arrays are of different types. This right here is an integer array because I have integers in it. Similarly, the one I made over here is a character array. What a character array means is that it takes basically characters or alphabets. So that's character array. So that's the basic on array. So there are two ways you can use for loops in array. One is the range way, which I used over here, and the other is the direct way. Now I'll tell you the difference between both. So for range, we'll go directly over to this. So what I did before that, I'll explain the initial code. So I took the number of cases. I went from range 1 to number of cases plus 1. Why did I use that plus 1? Because I told you, so let's say if the number of cases is 2 and I do 1 to number of cases, so the range is effectively only 1 because it does not consider 2. Once again, this is really important, so make sure to remember it, that Python does not care for plus 1. I mean, does not consider the last number in a range. So if it is 1, 2, the inside information or the inside value is only 1. So if I did it plus 1 over here, so it will be 1 and 3. So it will be 1, 2, not 3, because again, it's not taking the last one. And that's what we want. We want it to run 2 times because we have 2 inputs over here, right? The first line and the second line. So this is why I use the for loop over here. And once again, I would say as a rule of thumb, when you guys are using a for loop, just put this in the next line and put the code in the middle. It's so much easy. Again, you can have different functions in the end. It depends on what you want your loop to do and how you want the I to proceed. But like in general, just, you know, it's good to have this so that you don't get stuck in an infinite loop and you're confused what's the issue. So always have this. So I got the for loop, I did I plus 1 so that it goes through every case, and that's that. I explained you the loop, the main loop. Now inside that, I first initialized an array, which again was not important, but it is good for, it's a good practice. Then I initialized an even string, which doesn't contain anything, and an odd string, which again does not contain anything. Even the array doesn't contain anything. The initialization of these 2 strings is important, and I will show you why. Next, we come in to the input. So you see how we got the int or integer input over here, but these 2 are not integers. These are strings, right? So we take the string input, which is simply input. So in Python, again, Python is the reason Python is the easiest language is because Python takes many things or has many things understood by itself. So for example, if I just use input and don't put anything, it automatically considers it as string. So I don't need to, you know, have something like, I think string is the way, string, or you know, to specify that it's a string. I can just have str, I can just have input and it's good to go. If I want something else, I need to specify. So it just makes easier for inputting strings. And probably the developers realize that most inputs you take are strings, and that's why they kept it as the default, though don't quote me on that. So it takes the input. So in our case, it takes the first string, which is hacker. So we as we use the method from Geeks for Geeks, I think this is a great method, and I'll probably use it on my day-to-day more. What this did was, so we had the character array in the start. So character array basically means that you can, again, I have not defined it as a character array anywhere. It's a normal array, but I am using it as a character array. So I'm dividing the string into different alphabets or characters, right? So character array is equal to multiplication sign or asterisk str input. So str input over here is hacker, And now we know that if you use a star behind any string, it automatically, and you put the square brackets, it automatically, divides it into individual characters, right? So once that is done, the reason I think this is because, as far as I remember, the asterisk means splitting anything up to its most basic form, right? And then again, so we have, now what we have done is, effectively what we have done is, if we look at the array right now, it's something like this. I can honestly print it out for you and you guys will see the same output. And this is another practice which is really important in Python, which is printing out your outputs when you're getting errors. We have fortunately not gotten stuck anywhere yet, and we didn't need to do that, but in the future we soon will have to. So this is what we have right now. The char array basically took hacker and made it into this, right? Next up, we used a for loop. So what this for loop did was, you shouldn't use the same variable twice. If you used I again over here, I'm not sure if it will make an issue. Yeah, it will make an issue because I is already 1 and we want to start it from 0. So in Python, character array always starts from 0. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. Though this is a 6 character array, but as we are starting from 0, it only goes till 5, as we can see from the problem statement as well. So don't use I, use a different variable. Again, it might work, but it's best to be safe than sorry. And so yeah, so what I was talking about are two ways. One is the range way. So I'll explain you the range way. So what I did over here was took the first index, which is 0, and then length of the character array. So the length of the character array, effectively, we don't start from 0 for the length. We start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the length is 6, right? So if I put 6 over here, 0 and 6, as I told you once again, and I'm repeating this, that because it does not take the last integer, it will be 0 to 5, which we have over here. So again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this took only till 5, I would do +1 for going 1 ahead. But because it does not, I won't take it. And if I do +1 right now, it's gonna give me an error, because it's then gonna search for 6, and there is no 6. There is only 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is no 6, and it's gonna give me an error. It's gonna give me an index out of range error. So for j in range 0 to length of character array, so first it takes the 0th element, which is h. So j is 0. So is 0 divided by 2, is the remainder 0? Yes, it is, because 0 is considered to be an even index. So what that does is, it sees our even string over here, and that's why I initialized it before. So what I'm doing is, it takes the empty even string and adds the element in character array 0th position, which is h. So it effectively changes this to h, right? Now else, we don't go to else because our if condition is already fulfilled, right? So now what it do is, we skip else. Do we have anything else under for statement over here? We do not. We have the print, but that is at the same indentation as for. Once again, indentation is very important. If this print was inside, that would mean that the for will use this right now. But because it is not inside and it is outside, the for will skip it and it will go back to the start. So it goes back to the start. Now j is 1, and 1 modulus 2 is not equal to 0. It is equal to 1. Modulus basically means remainder. So 1 divided by 2 is obviously 1 zeros are 0, 2 minus 1 ones are 1. Wait, so it's basically 1 divided by 2. It is 0 and 1 will be the remainder because 2 zeros are 0 and 1 minus 0 is 1. Okay, and then it comes to then L. So because it is not equal to 0, and we always use equals to twice when we are comparing two things. So we are comparing the number on the left with the number on the right, and that's why we need 2. And we use 1 when we are initializing, when we are changing something. So in this case we are changing, but in this case we are not changing anything, we are comparing two things, and that's why you use 2 equals to. If it was not equal to, we will have equals to exclamation mark, or exclamation mark equal to, my bad. You see that? So if we wanted to do the odd one first and else even one, we would have used this, not equals to. But because we used the even one first, we did equals to. Else, now because it is not an even, it's obviously gonna be odd. We don't have any other options. If we had other options, we would have it as else if, and then we would have it as the not equal to condition, which is j divided by 2 is not equal to 0, right? And then elif, my bad, yeah, elif, and then we would have another else condition. We don't necessarily need an else condition, but if you are adding an elif, there is a high chance that you also have an else for exceptional handling and error cases. But in our case, we don't have any of those, so we just use the else. So when j is 1, we go to the else case, and we have the string odd because 1 is odd. So the string odd is empty right now, but we add the character array 1. So character array 1 is a. So we got h in the string even, and we got an a over here. Continuing this trend, we get c, k, e, and r. And as you can see, that's the output over here. So this is what the for loop does. And now explaining what the other for loop where I do not use range at all. So the other for loop looks like for I in char array. So what this one does is it does not take any numbers from 0 to n. It takes directly the elements from char array. So for I in char array starts from h. So I is equal to h, not 0, not 1, not 2, not 3, not any other number. It's equal to the first element of character array. Now that can be 1. I'm not saying it cannot be 1, but in our case it is not. And it basically takes the element. So when is this useful? We could use this in our case as well. So what we can do is for I in char array, we can first str even add this, and then we can continue, and then str even, str odd add the next one, and continue the cycle repeated. But this is generally useful when you want to directly use the elements of the array and not the indexes, and you don't need the indexes. But in our case, I found this to be easier because we can easily check if it's odd or even, and that's why I use this one. But again, these are the two ways you can use for. I'm pretty sure there are other ways as well, but these are the two I would say basic and major ways. So once we have all of this, we submit the code. I think we did already, yeah. And then we go back. Now we are in the next day. Day 7 is arrays. They should have honestly taught arrays before day 7. Day 6, because we used arrays in day 6, but it's alright. We know what it is, right? Mm, water break. Meanwhile, we are reading the question. Alright, so we are learning about the array data structure. Yeah, so given an array A, right, of n integers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 integers. Print A's elements in reverse order, 4, 3, 2, 1, as a single line of space separated numbers. Alright, this looks pretty easy, and as I can see over here, they have given us some code already to work with. I wonder what does their code mean. That's the thing, right? I think that sometimes these coding educational platforms overdo it. Like anyone who is doing day 6 or day 7 of coding, they don't have any clue what does a map or R strip mean, and that's just too much information that they don't understand. And now they will probably have to search it, or they will just skip it and they'll try to find a solution in the internet because they don't understand what it means, which I think is really bad. But nevertheless, we'll try to understand it, and if not, we'll try to change it into a way we can understand it. All right. So the first line contains the size of the array. The second line contains the n-spaced integer that describe array A's elements. All right, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so the first line, so in sample input, the first line describes the size, so the array has the size of 4, and the second line is a string with the elements of our array. So what does that mean? That means that we need to separate the string and the elements from the string and then convert it to integer, right? All right, so let's look at the code we have over here. The first line is, we saw this at the 5th problem, I think. Yeah, we saw this at the 5th problem as well. It takes the input, the single integer input, and it strips, basically removes the white spaces from the front and the back, right? And then it's initializing the array as a list. So list is mutable, whereas array is immutable. Now what's the difference between them? Mutable and immutable, the main difference between mutable and immutable is how much freedom you have with it. So in very simple words, you can look this up more, and I think this is a very important concept, but in simple words, immutable objects are not as editable, or as not as modifiable as mutable objects. So the map function, what does the map function do? Make an iterator that computes the function using arguments from each iterables. Stops when the shortest iterable is exhausted. All right, so basically what in very simple jargon, what the map function is doing is using all the processes described inside it, and once it finishes using the all the processes, it prints out the results to the list. So in our case, it first takes the input, so it takes this whole input, it strips it, so let me check the R strip. Yeah, this one, let me ask ChatGPT. R strip Python. Let's see, what does it say? So what R strip does is remove spaces on the right side. Now my question is, why do we need to remove spaces only on the right side? Why don't we? Oh, R strip is right strip. Right strip. I'm dumb. Why don't we remove it from both sides? Oh, that makes sense. So it's gonna split it first. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna take 1432. It's gonna split it to 1 space, 4 space, 3 space, and 2. There's no space after 2. And then it's gonna remove the space from 1 space. And then it's gonna remove space from 4 space. And then it's gonna remove space from 3 space. So it's effectively gonna get 1, 4, 3, 2, still strings by the way, but they don't have any spaces in them. Now how does this help us? And you see the int over here, the next step what it tries to do is convert it to int. Now if it had space, computer doesn't know what does space mean in integers. So it's either gonna give you an error or give you a random output, which I'm not sure of. But because we have successfully removed the space and it only has 1, computer sort of understands that 1 in string wants to be converted into 1 in integer, and it converts it. So this is basically what map function does. It does that for each and every element of this string, this large string, and then puts it in a list. So that did like basically 70% of the work for us. I'm not complaining, but I can, once again, for someone who is learning or is a new learner, for them I think this is a bit too much because they won't understand what's happening. And once again, for these cases I think ChatGPT is really helpful. So can you explain me this? And then it's probably gonna give you a definition. Yeah. So you guys can go ahead and read the definition, but I already explained it. But I think in these cases is where these educational organizations lack and ChatGPT shines, and that's why I think it is beneficial for coding and not that harming. I would actually love to see HackerRank, have something like I select this and then right click and then it's like, explain or help me. I know it has references and definitions, but they are not specific to this use case. There will be a general reference and definition which many people just don't want to read, and it's probably going to be a boring document. All right, moving on. Now that we have all the elements split in an array and we have the number of total number of elements, what we want to do is print it out in the reverse order. Right? There is an easy way and then there is an interesting way. And I know I can do the easy way without looking at anything, but the interesting way, I recall some steps, but I'll have to look into the syntax. As far as I can see through this question, they are trying to lead us to the easy way. So the thing that differentiates the easy and interesting way, so I'll explain you guys. The easy way is I take a for loop, I start it from n, so that's from the larger value, right? And then I go down to 0, so it's in descending order. And then I just print out the numbers in line or add them to a string with space in the middle and print them out. That's the easy way. The interesting way is I don't use this at all. I figure out the length of the array, right? And I use that to basically go in the reverse order. What and how does that help? Because if you do not know n, and if you only have been given this variable, how will you solve it? And the lesser variables you use, I think that's always for the better, right? We'll try. Oh, they have already given the for loop as well. Should I change their code? No, we'll go with their code. If they wouldn't have given the for loop, I would have used n, but because they have given the for loop, I cannot use n basically. I cannot use n. But why have they given the for loop? No, I'm not going to use their for loop. Yeah. I'm going to change their for loop. Ha! Come at me, HackerRank. I'll fight you. Please don't. 2 0. Yeah, right. That should work. Yeah. Okay. Str out is right now nothing, but it's gonna be str out is equal to str out plus these are integers, so I'll have to convert them to string, right? Yeah. No, it's a capital S. Yeah, the syntax of string also always weirded me out for some reason. ARRI. What does it say? Undefined name string. Is it small as then? No. It's str. Alright. And is that it? No. And this. Why is it? Why is it printing a new array? What? They don't want output as array. They want a single line of space separated numbers. This is so weird. Let's try it out. I think there's some kind of problem in this question. Str out. So we got this, and then we strip str out. Yeah. What? Oh, str out dot or strip. That makes sense, right? Yeah. What do you guys think? Will this work? It looks really sketchy to me, honestly speaking. Yeah, it didn't work. Why did it not work? What? Why is my console output nothing? This is where we need debugging, guys. So we print the array and see what's the issue. So it takes 1432, right? And then oh my bad. I equals to I minus 1. I told you guys, you should always remember your i's. Still nothing? Let's print I and see. So it's not printing I. It's not printing I. Is it not liking the descending range? Do I need to, let me just check. Python for range descending. It should give me an answer for that, right? Oh, yeah. That's on me. No, but that should not be your issue. List object is not callable. List object is not callable. Why is it not callable? Why is it not callable? Python list object is not callable. Oh, yeah, I should. Why didn't I use brackets? What? That's dumb. List index out of range. Let's try this. It's still out of range. Is it because I started with this and this? This should work. Three, two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's fine. I can remove this. Why is it not printing the last one? If I have a -1 over here. There we go. I think I understand the code. Let me try submitting it. Does it pass all the? It does pass all the test cases. But once again, this one gave me a ride for my money. So what did we do over here, you guys ask? Let's see, what's the time? Yeah, it's late. How much are we done with this? I did say that I'll go till recursion today, and I would have gone, but I was explaining each and every problem over this throughout the way, and yeah, it took longer than expected. So we'll probably end after I explain this today, and we'll continue tomorrow. Honestly, yeah, tomorrow I might host the stream a little bit early, and again, it depends on my time. But yeah, you guys, if you guys are watching this in post, again, write down in the comments if you guys need any help, and I'll make sure to check them out. And if you guys want explaining on any other, maybe in C++ or Java, if there any question that you guys are finding, hard to do, or any concept you don't understand, let me know. If it is within my capabilities, I will make sure to check it out and make a video on it. Yeah, so talking about this question, we were already given this and this, right? So I explained these two previously, that this array basically is an array of these 4 integers, and n is the number of this inputs. I didn't use n at all, as you can see over here, and I also changed their format. I'm honestly not sure what they wanted us to do, but you tried your way and it worked. So and honestly, what, I'll explain this to you guys. All right, so the first thing we did was the output string we initialized. I did not initialize this inside the for loop because first of all, why did I initialize it? I told you there is dynamic initialization in Python. The dynamic initialization, I also told you this, that it only works if after the equal to there you're not calling the same element. So imagine you are defining a variable but that variable doesn't exist and you're defining it upon itself. That's like, I'm pretty sure that's some kind of paradox. So that doesn't work. So if you're calling the same variable, you need to define it previously, and I did not define it inside the for loop this time because I don't want it to reset every time I call the for loop. I want it to stay, right? I want the ingredients or the contents inside the string to stay. If I had this inside the for loop, it's gonna be empty every time for loop runs, and that's not what I want. So I initialized it outside, and then for I in range, so length of ARR, which in our case I think is 4, right? 4, yes. 2 minus 1, and then you're like, what is this another constant you have put over here? Now, honestly speaking, this is a fancy way, and this is also a reason, this is something which Python showed me, ChatGPT showed me, and this is again another reason why ChatGPT is fancy, and it always wants to do stuff better than us humans, which at many times it does. But what it basically means is, let me just show you. That's what it means. So instead of doing I minus 1 at the end, or why do I want to do minus 1 and not plus 1? Because I'm going from a larger value to a smaller value. I want it to go 3, 2, 1, 0. We are ignoring the minus 1 because the last integer is not counted. Yeah, so 3, 2, 1, 0. That's what we want it to be. So we want I to be 3 first, which it is, and then we want it to be minus 1 and then become 2, and then minus 1, then 1, and then minus 1 and then 0, and then stop. The minus 1 over here basically eliminates this. And now you will be asking, oh, then can't you use this for plus 1? Yeah, you're right. So let's say for a previous question, if it was I plus 1 as we had previously, instead of writing this whole statement, you can just write 1 over here. That's it. Yeah, I know it's a much easier way, you're even saving a line, but if you look at it, it's a little bit counterintuitive, right? Like in 99% of languages, you generally have only 2 values in a range. You don't have a third value, right? So I don't use it because someone who is reading my code later will probably be confused if they're not familiar with Python as to what exactly it means. But if you want, go ahead. Yeah, this is an easier way, and if you want to be fancy like ChatGPT, why not try using this? So I think I explained the code really well. We start with 3, I is 3, string out, string array I, so array 3, so the third element in our array is the last one, which is 2, and then I added a space because the output needs space in it, and then it again runs the loop, and it's not initializing it to 0 because it will have the 2 and the space. So right now string out is this, right? And it's gonna stay like that because I initialized it outside the for loop. Next, what it is gonna do is I is gonna be 3 minus 1, 2. So in the second position, so it is 0, 1, 2, 3. So and 2, it is 3. So it's gonna be 3, and then we also had a space. And then similarly, it's gonna be 4 for 1 for the first position or index 1. And finally, it's gonna be 1 for index 0. All right, now we have our, the reverse order. But as you might be able to see, there is an anomaly over here, and that's the space after 1. So how do I solve it? You remember how we just learned about rstrip, which removes the space on the right side? I also became fancy like HackerRank and ChatGPT, and I used rstrip. So what that did was strip the white spaces from the right side. and that's why I had to use this. If this was not an issue, I would just do str out, and and because I do the R strip, it removed the spaces, and I was greeted with 2341, and there we go. That's our output. All right, guys. This concludes day one of our HackerRank 30 days of code. So this will I will do a video on HackerRank tomorrow, and then probably one more day after tomorrow as well. Again, as I find time, I'll be doing it, but I'm planning to do more frequent live streams, just cause I think when I write code while explaining everyone, I think I come up with better solutions. And again, I also want to educate you guys as well. And if anything, this pushes me to code more and learn more. So stuff like maybe rstrip, I would have never looked it up and just ignored it. But because, I know that there's an audience out there who wants to know about this stuff and they're eager to learn, it just invigorates me more as well. Anyway, so this is the end of, I would say, day one of my coding live stream. I will catch you guys tomorrow, if not pretty soon in the future.